Mom's sick, so I came instead. Little girl walked into the job interview. What the millionaire CEO did next was unbelievable. Hello? I'm so sorry. Sarah's voice trembled as she pressed the phone to her ear. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, a result of the fever burning through her fragile frame. I'm in the hospital. I truly want to come. I've been preparing, but right now Ma'am, the voice on the other end was cold, unbending. We do not reschedule interviews. If you are not present at the designated time, your application will be disqualified. Thank you. Click. The line went dead. Sarah's arm fell to her side, as if all strength had drained from her. She stared up at the white ceiling of the hospital room, the pale morning light slipping through the blinds. Her vision blurred, but not from the fever. Her heart sank deep into her chest. Slowly her gaze dropped to the worn leather bag clutched against her side, her lifeline. She pulled it close and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was her resume, carefully typed and printed the night before, protected in a clear folder. A tiny, hopeful note she had written to herself rested on top. This is the start of something better. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Please, she whispered, barely audible, do not take this chance away from me. My daughter needs this. She deserves more. In the quiet corner of the room, a little girl sat curled on a plastic hospital chair, legs swinging above the floor. Her name was Lily. She was 4 years old, with hair the color of honey and eyes as blue and bright as the morning sky. She had watched her mother make sacrifices every single day, watched her come home late from the diner, exhausted, only to sing lullabies before bed. Watched her fix their broken toaster with duct tape and a spoon. Watched her skip dinner so Lily could eat. And now, Lily had watched her mother cry. She did not speak. She simply sat still, small hands clenched on her lap, her face serious beyond her years. When Sarah fell asleep, finally overtaken by medication and fever, Lily stood on the chair, leaned over, and gently brushed a strand of hair from her mother's damp forehead. Then she climbed down. She tiptoed to the bag, unzipped it slowly, and took the folder inside, the one her mom had looked at every night for a week. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she turned, walked to the coat rack, and reached for her favorite pink dress. The one with the little white bows on the sleeves? She slipped into it without a sound. Then, with both hands clutching the oversized folder, she padded out of the hospital room and down the hallway, past nurses and patients and the coffee machine that never worked. No one noticed her. No one stopped her. She found her way to the ground floor and out into the city morning. Cold wind pushed against her small frame, but she didn't flinch. She knew where she needed to go. She had seen the building on the brochure her mother had taped to the fridge. The city bustled around her, strangers moving too fast to notice the little girl walking alone, determination in every step. She crossed streets with the confidence of a child who believed in her cause. She took the right bus because she remembered the number. She held the folder tight against her chest, as though it contained magic, as though it could change everything. 40 minutes later, Lily stood in front of a tall glass building, towering into the sky like something from a movie. The letters on the front read, Braden & Co. Global Solutions. She took a deep breath, then walked in. The reception area at Braden & Co. was buzzing with the usual early morning rhythm, footsteps clicking against the marble floor, quiet conversations, the hum of elevator doors opening and closing. Behind the front desk, Charlotte, the receptionist, was flipping through her schedule for the morning interviews when a small shadow appeared across the marble. She looked up. A little girl stood there, no taller than the counter itself. She wore a soft pink dress with white bows at the shoulders, white socks bunched just above her shoes, and a tiny red clip holding back a strand of honey blonde hair. Her blue eyes were wide, curious, and utterly serious. Charlotte blinked, unsure if this was someone's child who had wandered away from a visitor. "Sweetheart," she said slowly, leaning over the counter, "are you looking for someone?" The girl nodded, clutching a folder almost half her size. "I'm here for the job interview," she said simply. There was a pause. Charlotte tried to process what she'd just heard. "Interview?" she echoed, stunned. "Yes," the girl said again, lifting the folder higher. "It's my mom's. She's really good, but she's sick today, so I came instead." Charlotte stared at her. Around them, a few employees slowed their pace, watching the scene unfold with growing interest. "What's your name, sweetie?" "Lily. And your mom's name?" "Sarah Parker." Charlotte quickly scanned her list. There it was, Sarah Parker, scheduled for 9:00 a.m., the last candidate of the morning. She hesitated. Okay. One moment, Lily." She pressed her earpiece. "Lena, could you inform Mr. Braden that he needs to come down? It's about the last interview. Just tell him it's important." "Very." Upstairs in the sleek, glass-walled executive office overlooking the skyline, Albert Braden sat alone at his desk. 32 years old, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, he was known for being brilliant, ruthless in business, and as emotionally unavailable as he was successful. He had built his company from nothing, and along the way, lost interest in small talk, holidays, and anything that resembled family. He had dismissed most interview days as routine exercises in disappointment, until his assistant appeared at the door, a flicker of a smile tugging at her lips. "Albert, you may want to take this one in person." He raised an eyebrow. "Is it the Harvard grad or the ex-Google manager?" "Neither," she said. "It is. Very unique. Just come down." Albert sighed, stood up, adjusted his watch, and made his way downstairs. When the elevator doors opened, he was greeted by a sight so unexpected that he stopped short. There she was, barely taller than a fire hydrant, standing in the middle of the lobby like she owned the place. Lily. The moment she saw him, her face lit up. "You're the boss?" she asked cheerfully. Albert blinked. "Yes, I am." "I'm here to show you my mom's paper," she said, walking right up to him. "She's sick, but she really wants this job, and I think she deserves it." She handed him the folder with both hands. It was slightly smudged, the corner bent, but he took it. The room was silent. Dozens of people held their breath. Albert looked at her for a long second. Then, for the first time in years, the corners of his lips tugged upward, just barely, but enough to be real. He turned to Charlotte. "Clear my schedule for the next 15 minutes." Charlotte blinked. "Sir, I am conducting an interview." He turned back to Lily and gestured toward the hallway. "Shall we?" She beamed and nodded. Inside the conference room, Albert pulled out a chair for her, twice her size, but she climbed up with practiced confidence, placing her feet on the bar below. Albert took his seat across from her and opened the folder, scanning the resume while occasionally glancing at her. "So, Lily," he said, adjusting his tone, "tell me why your mother wants to work here." Lily leaned forward slightly, resting her hands on the edge of the table. Her voice was clear, not rehearsed, just honest. "Mama works really hard," she said. "She does not buy anything for herself. She always saves money for me. She wants a job that's not just cleaning or waiting tables. She says she wants to use her brain again." Albert looked at her, unmoving. "She went to college, but she had to stop," Lily added, "because she had me." He blinked slowly, his jaw tight. "And you think she would do well here?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "She's really smart and kind. She always helps people." Albert stared down at the resume again, this time reading every line more carefully. Then he looked back at the girl. "And why did you come here today, Lily?" She smiled. "Because Mama was really sad when she hung up the phone. She said she wanted to give me a better life. So I came to help." Albert leaned back slightly. His expression softened. Not much, but enough for anyone who knew him to realize something profound had just shifted. He gave a small, genuine smile. "Well then," he said, closing the folder gently, "let us begin the interview." Albert sat across the table, hands loosely clasped over Sarah's resume. Though he had stopped reading it, his eyes were on the little girl seated opposite him, posture straight, feet dangling, eyes bright and unwavering. He spoke with unusual gentleness. "Can you tell me," he asked, "what your mom is like?" Lily's hands were folded in her lap. She blinked, thinking, then said with quiet certainty, "Mama works all day. All the time." He tilted his head slightly. "What kind of work?" "She cleans houses. And sometimes she's a waitress. Sometimes she brings food to people's doors. She never gets to sit down much." Albert frowned slightly, nodding for her to continue. "She never buys anything for herself," Lily added. "Even when her shoes have holes, she says, 'No, these are still good,' and then she buys me new ones instead." Albert glanced down at the girl's feet, white sneakers with glittery stars on the sides. New. Clean. It made sense now. "She always puts me first," Lily said, and her small voice turned soft. "Every time." There was a long pause in the room. The city noise was muted by the thick windows. In that quiet, Albert felt something stir inside his chest, something that had been still for too long. "Did your mom go to college?" he asked gently. Lily nodded. "She did. She says she loved learning. But she did not get to finish. She had me." Albert's breath caught in his throat. He leaned back slightly in his chair, eyes never leaving her. "She told me," Lily continued, "that she didn't regret it. She says I'm her favorite reason to stop anything." That sentence, so pure, so full of loyalty and sacrifice, landed with the weight of truth. Albert closed the folder. He could imagine it. A young woman, bright, ambitious, full of potential, and then suddenly completely alone. No family support, no partner, a baby. And instead of running, she chose to stay, to build a life around that baby, even if it meant scrubbing floors, waiting tables, missing meals. That kind of strength was not listed on resumes. "And what do you want for your mom?" he asked, his voice low. Lily tilted her head, thinking again. "I want her to be happy," she said. "She's always tired, but she smiles when I draw pictures for her or when we watch cartoons. I think she just needs a break." She paused, then looked up at him with eyes as wide and blue as the ocean. "Mama doesn't need a lot of money," she said earnestly. "She just wants a job that lets her buy ice cream every weekend." Albert froze. Something about that, so simple, so heartbreakingly innocent, cracked a piece of his well-armored exterior. "She told me once," Lily whispered, "that she would be the happiest woman in the world if she could just give me that. A little bit of ice cream. Every Saturday." He swallowed hard. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. The silence between them was thick now, not awkward but reverent. Lily shifted in her chair, legs swinging again. Albert finally leaned forward, placing the folder gently on the table. "Lily," he said softly, "you know, I have interviewed a lot of people in this room." She looked at him curiously. "But no one has ever said something that mattered quite like that." She smiled, unsure what he meant, but sensing it was something good. "I think," he said slowly, choosing his words with care, "your mother might be exactly the kind of person we need." Lily's face lit up. "Really?" Albert nodded. "Really." Then, for reasons he could not explain even to himself, he added, "And I happen to know a place that has very good ice cream." She beamed. "Mama would like that." He smiled, a little wider now, a rare, genuine smile, one that reached all the way to his eyes. For a moment, he let himself imagine it. Sarah sitting across from him, not in desperation, but with dignity, Lily by her side, laughing. A life that was not built on sacrifice alone, but one where someone finally showed up for them. He stood, walked to the door, and called for his assistant. "Please find out which hospital Sarah Parker was admitted to yesterday," he said calmly. "Send flowers and something for a little girl. Ask if she is available for a formal interview once she is well." Then he looked back at Lily, who was now standing proudly beside the chair, folder in hand again. "Thank you for coming today," he said. "You did a very brave thing." She shrugged playfully. "Mama says I'm brave all the time." Albert held the door open for her. "She's right." Albert sat alone in his office, the folder still resting on his desk. The room was quiet now, sunlight creeping across the floor through floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, the city buzzed along its usual path, but inside, something had shifted. He opened the folder again, not out of obligation, but out of genuine curiosity. Sarah Parker. Her name was typed neatly at the top of the page. Beneath it, a concise and well-structured resume unfolded. A record not of prestigious titles or high-powered jobs, but of promise and perseverance. Academic achievements first, full scholarship to a reputable university, honors in her freshman year, president of the Student Marketing Club, peer mentor. Her GPA was impressive and her professors had left glowing references. Then, a sudden gap. No degree completed, no internships. Instead, the next section began with a string of part-time positions: waitress, housekeeper, delivery driver, late-night janitor. The kind of jobs no one boasted about, the kind of jobs that kept a roof over a baby's head. Albert read slowly, absorbing each detail, each choice. At the very bottom of the resume, beneath the last line of experience, a small handwritten note caught his eye. It was in soft ink, slightly slanted. Not dramatic, not begging. I am not looking for sympathy. I am only asking for a real chance. He stared at those words. They said more than any cover letter ever could. Albert leaned back in his chair and looked out the window, thoughtful. He had built his company on logic, data, measurable results, but there was something about this, about her, that broke through all of that, not because he felt sorry for her, but because he admired her. He saw the kind of grit that never showed up in traditional interviews, the kind of resilience born not from ambition, but from necessity, the kind of quiet strength that shaped not just employees, but leaders. He pressed the intercom. "Charlotte?" "Yes, sir?" "I need a delivery sent to City General Hospital." A pause. "Of course. What should we send?" Albert stood, walked to his bookshelf, and pulled out a small, gift-wrapped box he had once planned to give a colleague who had a baby. He had never used it. "And have the florist downstairs prepare something simple, not too grand, just something kind." Charlotte hesitated. "Who should we address it to?" He thought for a moment, then said softly, "Sarah Parker." "And the message?" Albert glanced back at the resume, then replied, "To the strongest woman I have yet to meet." The morning sunlight slipped through the hospital blinds, warm against Sarah's pale cheeks. Her head ached dully, and her limbs still felt heavy from fever, but something was different. The air in the room held a strange, almost fragile calm. She turned her head slowly and saw it. A small bouquet of wildflowers in soft pastel shades resting on the bedside table. Next to it was a neat little box, wrapped in simple cream paper with a satin ribbon. A note leaned against the flowers. Confused, Sarah reached for it with trembling fingers. "To the strongest woman I have yet to meet." Her heart skipped. She sat up straighter, blinking in disbelief. It was addressed to her. Carefully, she opened the box to find a small pack of chocolate milk and a handwritten card, nothing extravagant, but impossibly thoughtful. "Lily." Her stomach dropped. She reached for her phone with panic tightening in her chest. She had been too weak to stay awake last night. What had her daughter done? Fumbling, she dialed the company's number listed on the printout she had kept in her bag. A soft female voice answered. "Braden & Co., this is Charlotte speaking." "Hi, hello, this is Sarah Parker," she said, her voice still hoarse. I think there's been a misunderstanding. My daughter, she's only 4. I think she may have come to your office yesterday with my resume. I'm so sorry. She didn't mean any harm. She just..." The woman chuckled gently on the other end. "Miss Parker, no need to worry. In fact, your daughter might be the bravest person to ever walk into our lobby. Our CEO was very impressed." Sarah froze. "Your CEO?" "Yes," Charlotte replied warmly. "He would like to meet you, formally this time. If you're feeling better, he's cleared some time this afternoon." Sarah's breath caught. "Are you sure?" "We are very sure." That afternoon, Sarah stepped out of a cab in front of the towering Braden & Co. building. She clutched her bag tightly, her legs still weak, her cheeks flushed from the lingering fever. She had changed into a simple navy mule blouse and skirt, not the best she owned, but the cleanest. Her blonde hair was tied back neatly. She tried to steady her nerves, but her heart thudded relentlessly in her chest. Inside the lobby, the receptionist greeted her like an old friend. "Ms. Parker, welcome back," Charlotte said kindly. "He's expecting you." Sarah followed her through a series of quiet hallways and into an elevator. The silence inside the lift was filled with every kind of fear and hope she had carried for years. When the doors opened on the top floor, Charlotte stepped aside. "He's in there." Sarah nodded and walked in. The office was spacious and modern, filled with natural light. At the large glass desk near the window stood a tall man with dark hair and an air of calm precision, Albert Braden. He looked up and smiled, a real smile, not polite, not forced. "Miss Parker," he said, stepping forward, "I'm glad you're feeling better." Sarah's eyes widened slightly. She felt suddenly very small in the room, aware of her flushed cheeks and trembling hands. "Thank you. I'm so sorry about my daughter." Albert raised a hand, stopping her gently. "There's nothing to apologize for," he said. "She gave one of the most compelling presentations I've ever witnessed." Sarah blinked. He gestured to the chair in front of his desk. "Please, have a seat." She sat, legs crossed at the ankle, bag on her lap like a shield. Albert sat down too, and for a moment he simply studied her. "You know," he said, tapping the folder on his desk, "I have read thousands of resumes, but yours came with the most remarkable letter of recommendation I've ever received." Sarah's lips parted slightly. Her heart thudded. Albert smiled again, softer this time. "She believes in you more than anyone I've ever met believes in anything." Sarah lowered her eyes for a moment, the heat rising to her cheeks. She's my whole world." "I can tell," Albert said, "which is why I would very much like to see what you can do here." Sarah looked up, hope flickering bright in her eyes. Sarah's first day at Braden & Co. felt like stepping into another world. The glass walls, the constant clicking of heels, the quiet hum of efficiency. It was everything she had once dreamed of, and everything she feared she might never be good enough for. Albert offered her a position as a junior project assistant. She had expected an internship, maybe a trial period of filing papers. But this was real. The team was polite but distant. Her clothes were modest, her shoes a little worn. She looked different, sounded different, and many of her co-workers knew, without needing to ask, that she was the one with the kid. Some whispered that she had been hired out of pity. Others simply ignored her. But Sarah didn't flinch. She came early, stayed late, took notes, asked questions. She soaked up every training video, read every company report, watched how the senior assistants moved, organized, followed up. Her fingers flew over the keyboard like she had never left school. And when she made mistakes, and she did, she owned them, fixed them, and never repeated them. Slowly, the tone began to shift. Someone asked her for help fixing a slide deck. Another asked if she could organize a meeting schedule. And then someone said thank you and meant it. But one person never doubted her, Albert. He never hovered, never micromanaged, but he watched closely. And when Sarah's name came up in meetings, he would lean forward, asking what she had contributed, how her ideas were received. He noticed everything. Like the day Lily had a fever and Sarah called in to say she might be a little late, Albert sent her a private message. "Family comes first. Take the time you need." Or the afternoon he noticed her skipping lunch and had his assistant accidentally bring an extra sandwich to the break room. Or how he made sure she was always seated at the table, not in the back, during project reviews. He never said anything directly, but she knew. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah began to believe in her own worth again. One evening, long after most of the office had gone dark, Sarah sat at her desk, finishing edits on a presentation for a major client. The soft buzz of the city lights glowed through the windows. Her eyes were tired, her fingers stiff, but she felt something rare, fulfillment. She did not notice Albert approach until he spoke, You work harder than most people who have been here 10 years. She looked up, startled, then smiled. Guess I have 10 years to catch up on. He gestured to the chair beside her desk. May I? She nodded. For a moment they just sat there, two people surrounded by quiet, the hum of the city below. Then Sarah spoke, voice low. You know, I never thought I would end up in a place like this. Albert looked at her, curious. Why not? She hesitated. I was in college, she said slowly. Marketing major, I loved it. I had plans, internships lined up. Then she took a breath. I met someone, thought he was everything, got pregnant in my first year. Albert's expression didn't change, but his gaze softened. I thought maybe we'd figure it out together, but... He left, disappeared. She paused again. My parents said I ruined everything, that I had embarrassed them. They told me to either give the baby up or leave. Albert didn't move. I left, she said simply, and I never went back. She looked down at her hands, twisting them slowly. I chose Lily. I chose to be her mother, but I had to let go of everything else, the degree, the apartment, the future I thought I'd built. Albert reached across the desk, gently placing his hand over hers. She froze, expecting sympathy, or worse, pity. But his voice was steady. I was left too. She looked up. I was 10, he continued. My parents died in a car accident. No siblings, no extended family who wanted a kid. I bounced between homes, learned to survive. I built this company because I wanted control over my life, but I never had what you have. What's that? She whispered. Courage, he said. You chose love, Sarah, even when it cost you everything. Her eyes filled with tears. I used to think I was weak, she said. You are anything but. They sat there in silence again, not needing to say more. In that quiet, something changed. Respect deepened, walls softened. And two people, long used to surviving alone, began to feel the unfamiliar comfort of being understood. Months passed, and Sarah's world slowly transformed. She had grown into her role with grace and grit. Colleagues who once looked past her now sought out her input. She was no longer just the assistant. She became the one who caught mistakes, offered quiet solutions, and delivered results with consistency and care. Her name carried weight, and it was spoken with respect. Albert watched all of it unfold. He no longer had to monitor her progress. Her work spoke for itself. But he still found reasons to check in, small excuses, questions he already knew the answers to, and when he walked past her desk, his gaze often lingered just a little longer than it should. It wasn't just Sarah he had grown attached to, it was Lily. Every Friday afternoon, Lily arrived at the office after preschool, skipping down the hallway like it belonged to her. She sat on Albert's office couch with coloring books, tiny shoes swinging as she waited for Uncle Albert to finish his calls. Sometimes, he canceled his last meeting of the day just to take her out for a milkshake. They had their rituals. She called him boss man when she wanted his attention. He called her the real CEO. At company picnics, she rode on his shoulders. In the lunchroom, she always saved him the last cookie. Sarah saw all of it, and each moment left her heart fuller and more frightened. She had loved quietly for so long, buried her hopes beneath practical needs. Now, love was staring her in the face every day, and it was smiling, carrying her daughter on its shoulders. One evening, the three of them sat in Albert's office after hours. Lily was curled up in the corner with a juice box, humming as she colored in a sketch pad. Sarah and Albert were finishing up a project recap, laughter easy between them. The kind of laughter that belonged to people who had seen each other's scars and chosen to stay anyway. When they finished, Sarah leaned back, stretching. She's tired, she said, glancing at Lily. Albert looked over. We can carry her down. Sarah smiled, then stood. Let me grab her bag. As she turned away, she heard Lily's small voice behind her. Mommy? Sarah turned. Can I call Uncle Albert, Daddy? The room went completely still. Albert froze. Sarah stared, the bag slipping slightly from her fingers. Lily looked up, innocent and sincere. "Because he always picks me up and brings me ice cream. And he reads to me like you do. And he makes you smile." Sarah's eyes filled instantly. Her breath caught in her throat, not from surprise, but from certainty, because deep down she had already known. She had known from the way Albert looked at Lily like she mattered, from how he spoke to Sarah like she belonged, from the quiet safety she felt in the spaces between them. This man, who had once built walls of steel around himself, had let them in, and somewhere along the way, they had built something neither of them expected: family. She knelt in front of Lily, voice soft and trembling. "You can call him whatever feels right to you, baby." Then she turned toward Albert, afraid of what she might find in his face. But he was already walking toward them. He crouched down beside them both, eyes gentle. He looked at Lily, then at Sarah. "I would be honored," he said. Sarah broke. Tears spilled freely now, not of fear or even relief, but of something far deeper: belonging. 1 year later, Sarah Parker was no longer just the nervous young mother who had walked into Braden & Co. with nothing but hope and a resume. She was now Sarah Parker, project team lead. Confident and poised, she led meetings, guided junior staff, and earned praise from every corner of the company. Her name showed up on success reports and in conversations that mattered. And always close by, quietly and constantly, was Albert. At first, their relationship was private, not from shame but respect, for their roles, for the company, and for each other. But as weeks turned into months, it became impossible to hide. Albert brought Lily her favorite pastries on Monday mornings. Sarah was the only one allowed to interrupt his meetings, and the way their eyes met across the room told a story no one needed explained. It was never office gossip. It was something real, something people quietly rooted for. Sarah earned the admiration of her team not just for her work ethic, but for her kindness. She knew birthdays, helped with late-night projects, and remembered what it felt like to be overlooked. Lily, too, had become part of the company's fabric. She had her own seat in the break room, a drawer for crayons in the supply cabinet, and a fan club made up of executives and interns alike. She once opened a quarterly meeting with a cheerful, "Good morning, team," and no one forgot it. To many, she was the company princess. To Albert, she was simply his daughter. On the night of the annual Christmas gala, the ballroom sparkled with soft gold and forest green. Fairy lights hung above velvet-covered tables, music played, laughter echoed, and champagne flowed. Sarah stood by the grand tree in a deep blue gown, glowing with quiet grace. Her blonde hair shimmered, her smile calm and assured. Lily twirled nearby in a white dress, silver shoes flashing beneath her. As she laughed and danced, Albert stood just a few feet away, drink in hand, dressed in black tie, watching them both. His smile was different now, warm, open, deeply content. He had once kept himself apart from these things. Tonight he stayed close, not for show, but for love. Later, someone tapped a glass. The room quieted. Albert stepped forward. "I know this is the time of year when we usually talk numbers, growth, and goals," he began, glancing toward Sarah. "But tonight, I want to talk about something that changed my life." He looked toward Lily, now enjoying 2 cookies with frosting on her cheeks. "A year ago, I received the most unexpected job application I've ever seen. It was hand-delivered by someone about 3 feet tall, wearing a pink dress, holding a resume twice her size." Laughter rose around the room. Sarah covered her face, tears threatening already. Albert smiled, then grew more serious. "That little girl walked into my office with no fear. She looked me straight in the eye, and in that moment she brought more than a resume. She brought hope, courage, and the beginning of something I never knew I needed." He stepped toward Sarah and Lily and gently pulled them close. "To both of you," he said softly, eyes misty now, "thank you for showing up, for holding on, and for walking into my life exactly when I needed you." Then turning to Lily, he whispered with a smile, "For stepping into my office in that pink dress, holding that giant resume. Applause erupted, glasses clinked, and beneath the sparkling lights they stood together, not as CEO, employee, and child, but as something much more lasting, as a family. A family born from bravery, faith, and one unforgettable walk into the unknown. And so, a little girl in a pink dress, armed with nothing more than love, courage, and her mother's resume, walked into a world that wasn't meant for her, and changed it forever. Sometimes, family is not about where we come from, but who walks beside us when life gets hard. And sometimes, love finds us in the most unexpected places, like a boardroom, a hospital bed, or the heart of a child. If this story touched your soul the way it touched ours, we invite you to become a part of our growing family. Subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more true life tales that remind us all of the beauty, resilience, and quiet miracles hiding in everyday moments. Until next time, keep your heart open. You never know what story might walk into your life.